gentlemen, we are in a 2013 Ford Fiesta ST. The Fiesta ST, let's talk about how it specifically drives. It drives beautifully, and it really has all the same characteristics you want in a front-wheel drive car, a sporty front-wheel drive car. You know, it has that playful rear end, and it's got a lovely induction noise, and it has torque everywhere. The problem is when you get into speeds on the highway is when you lose that sort of power that you feel when you're around town. And you don't lose a lot of it, you just lose a little bit of it, which is, you know, sort of unheard of in a sub $25,000 car. This car has just the most wonderful driving dynamics. It gets good gas mileage, it has good noises, little blow-off noises when you lift off the throttle. Now, this car specifically does not come with the Recaro seats, which I believe is a must unless you're a bit of a larger person, in which case it's perfectly fine to go with these standard seats. You can always go aftermarket for a pair of seats that you like more, but one of the issues with this actual car is the interior. And what I mean by that is the quality of the interior. The quality of the interior is very, very cheap, and hard plastics everywhere. There is really not a touch of soft material here. A little bit on the dashboard, but the whole setup that you have here is it seems very ergonomic. Everything feels a little bit cheap. You get some of these LED lights here, which are really, really cool. You can also get navigation. You also have this touchscreen here that's it's not aimed directly towards you, so it's kind of weird. You get some of this reflection on the actual navigation portion of it. You get all the capabilities you need with Bluetooth navigation, streaming on your phone, the music, and, you know, Sync 2, which is not the greatest, but I mean, it's not bad once you get used to it. I think all car journalists have nothing to complain about with this car, and that's sort of, they have to come up with something, so they come up with Sync 2, which, you know, the responsiveness really isn't that bad, and I show that in another video if you want to see that. One of the issues with this car is also sort of the space. You know, it's a hatchback and you're supposed to get a little bit more space, and you don't really get that much space in this car. I mean, it's not bad, but I wish you had a little more. I think the Focus ST has the perfect amount of space, and actually maybe just a little bit less space than most people would want. Now you get your map lights here, you get the map lights back here as well, and the sound system is actually pretty good. It's a Sony sound system, 8 speakers I believe, and the sound system is actually very good. One of the things that I actually really love about this car is that the visibility, at least frontward and side, are really, really good. They have these smaller A-pillars with these little windows, which I really like. I really like this just because it's easier to see around bends and different things like that. Now, the rear visibility is really terrible. You can fold the headrest of the seats in the back so you can see a little bit more out the rear windows, but overall, if you have passengers sitting back there, it's really not good at all. It's very rattly. This car specifically has 21,000 miles on it, and it feels new on the interior portion, like everything's held up fairly well, but there's a bunch of rattles in here and rattles in there, but That shouldn't be why you buy this car. The majority of the engineering has been placed in, obviously, to the suspension and the actual engine. In this car you get a 1.6 liter inline 4, and it's turbocharged with 197 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 202 pound-feet of torque at 4,200 RPM. And let me tell you, you can just really feel the torque. This car just takes the cake with that amount of torque and the delivery of it. It's just ridiculous. Now, people complain about torque steer, and with this amount of horsepower and with this amount of torque, there is that issue. This car would do amazingly with an upgraded limited slip differential, and I firmly believe in that, and that would probably make this car perfect drivability wise. The problem with this car specifically is you run into some issues with quality, and you can feel it. All of this hard plasticky crap, and you know, things don't just feel, they feel cheap. The shifter feels very cheap. This handbrake feels very cheap. You know, this mirror, this interior feels very cheap. And that's sort of my overall gripe with this car. Other than that, this car is amazing driver-wise. So if you're looking for a car specifically focused on your driver, not necessarily your driver inputs, the steering on this car is very numb. It's very electrically, it's very standard of what you're looking at, you know, in today's age with electrical steering. Talking about sort of the performance, the brakes are really good too. They're very responsive. The problem with that is they're not very linear. Basically, when you touch it, it's very, very sensitive. So if you're looking for that more linear brake feel, this car does not have it. Now this car specifically weighs 2,700 pounds, around 2,700 pounds. I believe the final figure is 2,720 pounds. And it feels very light on its feet. It's awesome. And comparing this to a BRZ, a Volkswagen GTI, a Civic Si, it's right around those specific weight figures. And this car just feels overall more powerful than those naturally aspirated counterparts. And honestly, for the money, this car is just amazing, and I would definitely recommend it for anybody driving in, or anybody that has to make sort of a compromise based on weather. Like, I'm in Chicago, and driving a rear-wheel drive car and having, you know, winter tires and summer tires is kind of a pain in the ass. If you want to get a car that's an all-rounder, has enough room for 4 people, and there's not really room for 5 people. It's not really that big. Sitting behind myself, I have maybe like an inch of leg room. The headroom in here kind of suffers too. There's not really too much headroom in the rear. There's a decent amount of headroom in the front. But yeah, just that control into the corners is great. The ride in this car is also a little bit bouncy. You get that complaint with, you know, when you get suspension this tight, but I mean, it's a small price to pay to drive something that's very, very engaging and very, very fun. The infotainment system is really nice, the navigation is nice, the overall fit and finish of the actual interior is not that great. Something that I have to pick a bone with, but like I said, a car that starts off at around $21,000 and you get this kind of performance out of it, you can't beat it. You really can't beat it. You get 26 miles to the gallon in the city and 35 on the highway. So a combined around 29 miles to the gallon if you're driving very conservatively. Which, if you have this car, you're probably not driving it very conservatively. With that, you have a 12.4 gallon tank. So it's a pretty small tank, but you get a decent amount of gas mileage, so you can get pretty far when you're taking road trips with this car. Yeah, it's a small compact car, and you're gonna feel the bumps here and there, and your passengers are gonna feel those undulations up and down, and it's not too comfortable, but for the price, you can't really complain about it. I like that they have smaller turbos that spool up a lot quicker, and the aftermarket for these cars are wonderful. So Cobb and Mount Tune for providing sort of the stock-like feel of these, and the warranty as well provided by them. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Quality of the interior, the quality, you can get some heat.